Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us on another episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co-host, Chris Traumer, and as always, I'm joined by our other co-host, Sal Huerta.
Hello, everyone.
So Sal, we're back. It's been a little bit of time now, but we're back. I guess you could call this season 2. Picking up sort of where we left off. We got some great guests coming up over the next couple of months. Couple different estimators, software companies, estimating companies. So let's sort of jump into something I'm curious about now. Cost of product is something that's being thrown around right now with something we were discussing before we jumped on here with tariffs, the changes that come with them, also some uncertainty in the market, so on and so forth. And something I always see from manufacturers across all industries is when they say that sort of catchphrase, I don't know how much water it holds, but competitive pricing. And we've heard some of our estimators in the past sort of mention that and some others as well. But really, what is competitive pricing? At least to you, what is that? What does it mean when they're saying that?
So the first thought that pops in your head is the lowest price. So competitive pricing in my area has to be whoever's the lowest one that I can buy from. We hear that a lot from distributors who are saying that's all my customers want. Or I should say the distributor salespeople. That's all my customers want. They just want the lowest price and that's it. But the reality is, granted, it's going to be different for every contractor, but the competitive pricing part of it is going to include things that a distributor does, or even for themselves as a company. We talked about this a little bit in last season's podcast, but a contractor's employees, the people who are doing installing the jobs, the electricians and so forth, could be just used to a certain product. And because of that, they can install it faster. So even though that product could be pennies more than another product that's an equal fact that they can do it quicker, faster, is going to be cheaper for them, or in this case, be more competitive pricing wise, because even though they're paying more for it, because their guys can actually install it faster. On the distributor side, a contractor could like the fact that the distributor, sends their products to the job site. So even though they might be paying more for an item, but the fact that they're saving dollars in the delivery and on time and things like that, that adds to that competitive pricing that makes it better for that contractor instead of, again, just the lowest price.
I've been jotting down a few notes right here while you were talking. So competitive pricing, I guess one thing I have a question about is who is it competitive to? Like when you're looking at this to say, like if I'm a distributor or whoever, and I'm like, hey, I got competitive pricing, come over here, talk to us, price it out for, what are they basing that off of? Is that based off of market price? Is that based off of third column price? Because as we've discussed in the past, pricing can be different from one contractor to another, from one distributor to another, based off their relationships and buying patterns and buying trends and all those different factors to come into it. So a product that third column price might be $3, one contractor might be getting it for $2, another might be getting it for $1 and a nickel. So when you say competitive pricing, is it all varying based off of each individual contractor, and sort of what are they basing as the starting point to actually say something is competitive? Is it the market price, the third column price?
Well, everything starts off as the third column price or list price. And then the discounting goes on to that based upon, usage, how much you buy, all these different factors that a distributor has outlined for a contractor. But at the end of the day, again, the contractor is going to buy from who they do the most business with, or do the most business with the people that they like, the ones who do more for them. And so the competitive pricing in that aspect comes from what the distributor's value-added services are. Because again, if those services create a shortcut for a contractor, then it's not just price. It's all the other things that'll be bundled together that makes that item or that product or that distributor more competitive.
So competitive pricing, in the way you're putting it right now, expands out from not only just being a number for a product, so like an A to B correlation, but actually beyond that to here's our price, but behind it, here's all the additional value added services that you're gaining by going with us. So it's more like, yeah, we might not be as cheap as the guy next door that you're going to, but look, we could do same day delivery or on-site drops with containers full of all the products you need for phase one, or we'll do prefab, whatever it may be. All that sort of added in behind that price to say we might not be the cheapest or we are the cheapest, but look at what else we bring with us as well. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. We see this a lot in our personal life. If we were to buy a product and yet it was XYZ and we can get it in 2 days, but we can save 10% off if we buy it from someone else, but it's going to come in a month. Well, most people will say, well, I would pay the higher price just to have it in a couple of days. So those kind of value added things is what we do as consumers in our personal lives. In the same way for business people, they're going to look at this and say, yes, I could probably get it better somewhere else. But again, I can have instead of my guys standing around the job site waiting for a product or something like that, they now have the product there. Even though it costs a little bit more, it's going to be much more valuable to them to get that job done.
I feel like then this shouldn't have a name as competitive pricing then. I feel like it should be named value pricing or something, because really competitive pricing, as you mentioned in the beginning, is something you automatically think of as cheaper, like the cheapest price. Like, this is our competitive price to buy this car. Is look, it's so much more competitive than the other guy because we're bringing it in at 30,000 instead of 31,000. I mean, that's where my mind goes automatically when you hear competitive pricing, that you're trying to fight to be the best. It doesn't think of anything about the background of the value added that's unforeseen or not even thought about when you're just looking at a dollar sign. So I feel like the name of it should actually be something along the lines of, the value price or something else when being referred to, because competitive price doesn't seem like it actually brings enough weight for people to understand.
You're absolutely correct there. It's a buzzword that's been around the industry forever, and you're right. When you hear it in that context, it does sound like you're trying to drive the price to the lowest you possibly can. But in our instance here, especially in the electrical industry, that's not the case. I guess yes, you're right. It's a buzzword that we've all used or still are being used out there, but it's not the right one. Value added or things like that are the ones that are much more in line the way we do for pricing.
So looking at it, and I quickly Googled it. Definition, according to Google AI right now, is saying competitive pricing is a marketing strategy where the business sets prices based on what its competitors are charging, also known as competition based pricing. So that's what I really came down to. But what you're saying is in the electrical industry, there's a lot more behind that kind of definition. It's not just a way of matching your competitors or standing out or attracting new customers because you're sort of setting your price based on the distributor down the street. You're competitive saying in this way that we're discussing it, competitive pricing is adding in the value added services that a distributor carries from behind. All those other things we mentioned just a few minutes ago and in our previous podcast when we were talking to people, the services. So it sort of brings a twist to the definition the way you're speaking about it right now.
Yeah, you brought it up a little bit earlier. Can you imagine if a distributor, stages these products for you, so that way when you finished one part of a job and you're ready to start the next part of the job, they've got the product and everything waiting for you. They might be kitting things for you, meaning that they're putting some of the products together for you, so that way that those things are done by the time they're delivered to the job site. Those things are huge to a contractor, and it's not just saying, well, the guy down the street, is cheaper or I can walk in there and get it. If the distributor works with a contractor, that makes it competitive for that contractor to work with them. Not, again, as we've been talking about, not just driving down the lowest price.
So this is sort of adding a little bit more to it as I guess I continue to put this up there, is that what competitive pricing is online when you look at this definition is basically just saying a strategy where your business sets the price in based off of what your competitors are charging. So if Gary's charging $1, I'm going to charge $1, and there our pricing is competitive. This is going a step further and saying, hey, I'm going to charge you $1, but I'm also going to have it staged and ready for you to pick up, or I'm going to deliver it when you need it, or I'm going to, prefab it, or I'm going to cut and put all the wiring together, whatever it may be, and still charge you that dollar. Where the guy down the street's just charging you a dollar as well, but he's not going to have all these additional services and stuff available to you for that product or for when you need them.
Absolutely. And it goes even further than that. I mean, you can have the sales guy who's, either on the phone or stops by to see your office. Training classes that they'll have. That way they can educate your staff on the newest products, or how to install things. All those things become very valuable to a contractor, because again, it gets his people more educated. And then when they're on the job site, that education equals trimming the time of what it takes to install things. And we've talked about this in a previous podcasts. Labor is the biggest thing when it comes to these jobs. It's not the price of the product. So if you can find ways to educate your workers into learning the products quicker, that actually adds dollars to the bottom line. And so again, that makes it more competitive versus, say, another distributor who doesn't do those kinds of things.
So let me ask you this. Gary's distributor charges a dollar, Brian's distributor charges a dollar, both for the same product. What Brian's has all this additional value added that we just talked about, all these different services. Are they losing money on that dollar because they offer all those other ones, or are they gaining so much more business by adding all those additional value added services that in the end it's making up for their delivery to the job site or this or that, because they can offer the same product at a dollar? Because if you think about it, when I'm looking at it, okay, I'm selling it for a dollar, he's selling it for a dollar, but I have all these other products behind me, value added services, excuse me, behind me. They all cost something. You got to pay the people to do all this stuff. They're not free. So you would think that the price for the person offering all these value added services would be $1.25, $1.50. Is that how it works out? And people go for maybe the one that's $1.50 instead of a dollar, but they get all these additional services? Or is the distributor able to offer that dollar to dollar match and all these additional value added services as well?
You would think of it as an apples to apples, type of thing, but one would be losing money versus the other because of all the value added services that they have. But the reality is, you look at it as from a long term partnership scenario.
Yeah.
This, you're not
So
giving them the one job, and the one job they're losing a little bit of money. They're looking at it like, well, no, this guy's going to be a customer for ours, or gal for that matter, for years. And
yeah,
that's where it makes it up from, because now they've been able to work with these contractors, and then develop that relationship that does equal more jobs in the future.
it is going to basically be that dollar to dollar match, add all these value add services. In the short term, you might take a little hit, but in the long term, you're going to keep a customer that's going to be coming to you for the next decade on multiple projects. So it's going to end up working out for you in the end.
You see that a lot with like supermarkets, where they'll come out with an ad that says, the price of this or that for this, for X amount of dollars. And they're losing money on those products. But the idea is they want to get you into their store, and then you'll probably walk out with more stuff. That's always the joke about Costco. You're going in to buy two things and you come out with a basket full. That's what they're looking for as well. That helps that short-term process. But then the long-term part of it is that now you know what these guys have. And that because you know what they stock, what products they are carrying, then you'll always feel comfortable about going back and buying those exact same things. Again, much like we do with the supermarket, you're going to go back most of the time and buy the same fruits and vegetables, eggs and milk, and then now you just automatically know where, your shopping cart almost knows where to go in the supermarket just to buy where these things are at.
So I guess if we're going to go analogy for analogy, I would think, my brain's running as sort of like a restaurant or a bar. Food prices are usually paper thin when, for your profit margin, they're tiny. But with the liquor, the beer, whatever, you get somebody in the door and you sell them a burger, you're not making much off the burger, but you're making double off of every beer you sell them while they're sitting there. So you're making your money up on that side of the business instead of just on the food, because as long as they're sitting down and eating, you're making all that money off of the booze that they're drinking. So
Right.
pretty close to that. Is
Yeah.
that where you're going? Okay. Well, I guess based off of what you're saying here that, Google sort of got to change their definition for competitive pricing because it makes more sense to me than just saying, well, they charged a dollar, so I'm charging 99 cents and now I'm competitive. To me, this makes a lot more sense because, you're coming in saying, you charge a dollar, I charge a dollar, but hey, I'm getting competitive with you and I'm adding, three different value added services on the back of this. And then, the other guy's going, well, I got those three plus this fourth one. And the other guy's coming in saying, well, I can do these two. So it's adding a lot more value to it, which I think makes each location a little bit more competitive just by instead of saying, well, a one to one. I mean, I like your definition better because it really does play into the competitiveness and it opens that up to a lot more. Because if you're just going, okay, you're charging a dollar, I'm charging a dollar oh five, we're pretty competitive. But if you're coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to be even more competitive and offer you free delivery or after hours pickup from my docks or, this prefab thing or this or that, I feel like that's being more competitive in that space because you're not just going off a price, you're going off of what else can make the contractor's life easier. And you're adding so much more value behind that than just that one to one comparison.
Absolutely, because like we talked about, anything that, and again, each contractor's needs are going to be different. So it's not like these guys all have the same value added services. I mean, a lot of times they do, but a lot of times they are specific to certain things. Some guys can say, hey, we'll be available on Sundays in case you have an
Yeah.
emergency kind of thing. Those
Which can be
kinds of
huge.
stuff.
You notice something Friday and then, or over the weekend, and now you're like, hey, we need to get this ready for Monday. And you can have somebody run out, or it gets stocked or it's waiting for you. So either Monday morning or Sunday afternoon, you could pick it up and you're not losing any time on that job because it's already there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you see, those are the kinds of things, even though another distributor might not offer that, those are the value added services that do add that competitiveness. So now that contractor's thinking, well, if I ever have an emergency again, I know distributor XYZ is the one that's open. So yeah, those services do actually make a big difference again. And like we talked about, not just the price.
Now, you're obviously have a lot of friends that are estimators through what you do and a lot of all the guests that you've brought on here. I mean, you know them personally, professionally, you talk to them a lot. As an estimator sitting there, do you believe that when they're going out and they use NetPricer and they send out their pricing to, three different distributors, they get their pricing back and the pricing is rather close based off of their relationships. Do you think in their mind things start going, oh, okay, I got a dollar 25 and a dollar 15. They're all pretty close right now. Or let's make it even better here. I got a dollar, and I got a dollar. Do you think their brain already kicks over to the fact that, okay, Jim's over here offers me this, this, and this service, which is going to make it a lot easier for my guys down the road to be able to get product and get going. Do you think he starts automatically looking at those value added services when he's looking at those price, especially being the same price, as the direction he's going to go in moving forwards?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had guests last season that talked about how he thinks about the job based upon what his workers are comfortable with. We talked
Mhm.
about we used examples of maybe they're used car lot specialists, and so they know that if a hospital job comes up, well, that's not really what their mo. So yes, they're going to look at what their workers can do. Who got the best relationship with the distributor is, who's the one that's done well by them in the past. You know, um, who's the one that's maybe they've had change and turnover at that branch location that's closest to them. Now they have to start building new relationships all over. So yeah, there's a lot of these factors the estimators are going to look into the job, knowing that okay, if all is equal and all the prices are equal, okay, who's the one that's going to work with me the best? Because like we talked about already, which is they got to get the job done. And if they can get the job done the best they possibly can and the quickest they possibly can, that's where they're going to make the most money.
I mean, so with you adding all those additional things, and I mean, what you just mentioned there isn't even value added. I mean, some of it was, but it was also relationship based. And I know we've had conversations in the past about contractor to distributor relationship. So, I mean, if we can redefine competitive pricing right now in this conversation on today's electrical estimating, I like the version that you're putting out there, basically saying that competitive pricing is the extended value added and relationships that you do have behind the price itself. So I might be selling it for $1, but I'm competitive because the value added services and the relationship that I have with them makes this more intriguing than somebody else that's offering something at $1. So it might be, I mean, let's throw another one on there: value added services, relationship. I mean, I guess this falls on the relationship, but also where their budget constraints maybe.
Mhm.
So their purchasing power from them. I think all of these come together to create a better definition of competitive pricing: your relationship, your buying power, your value added services. I think all that standing behind that price. And like you said, then when you're looking at three of them and they're all $1, well, look beyond that, because beyond that dollar is X, Y, and Z that are going to influence the decision of an estimator or a purchasing manager on which distributor they're going to be moving forwards towards.
Absolutely. And again, because of all those things, that makes the job itself, not just a price job or that kind of thing. It's now, what can I do to what other services does somebody provide that allows me to round out this job so I can do it quicker? And like you said, all those value added services do really make a difference.
So we've now redefined, and I don't know how well it will take off. And my laptop's open, so maybe Google AI is listening as we speak, but competitive pricing, no longer just a marketing strategy where businesses set prices based off of what their competitors are charging, but competitive pricing is now, at least in our minds, what other services they provide beyond just that price. Is it the value added services? Is it the buying power? Is it the relationship? Because to me, I think in the conversations we had, all of those are going to add into it. And that makes you even more competitive, especially looking at that one to one. All right. Anything else you got, Scott?
No, I think we discussed this one pretty well.
Well, I guess we'll leave it there, Sal. I think we covered that pretty well. And if this is your first time joining us, we appreciate it. Please subscribe, come back for the future episodes. As I mentioned before, we got more coming out every Friday for you. We got some great guests coming up. We're looking forward to the next couple months of episodes that'll be rolling out for you. So in the meantime, as always, Sal, great to see you.
Good talking with you.
And take care, everybody.